Bundle of rights. All of the legal rights incident to ownership of property including rights of use, possession, encumbering and disposition. Real property, land and anything growing on, attached to, or erected on it, excluding anything that may be severed without injury to the land. Trade fixtures. Articles of personal property annexed by a business tenant to real property which are necessary to the carrying on of a trade and are removable by the tenant. Accretion. Accession by natural forces, e.g., alluvium. Avulsion. A sudden and perceptible loss of land by the action of water as by a sudden change in the course of a river. Rescission. The cancellation of a contract and restoration of the parties to the same position they held before the contract was entered into. Appurtenance. That which belongs to something, but not immemorially. All those rights, privileges, and improvements which belong to and pass with the transfer of the property, but which are not necessarily a part of the actual property. Appurtenances to real property pass with the real property to which they are appertenant, unless a contrary intention is manifested. Typical appurtenances are rights of way, easements, water rights, and any property improvements. Defeasible fee. Sometimes called a base fee or qualified fee. A fee simple absolute interest in land that is capable of being defeated or terminated upon the happening of a specified event. Life estate. An estate or interest in real property, which is held for the duration of the life of some certain person. It may be limited by the life of the person holding it or by the life of some other person. Freehold estate. An estate of indeterminable duration, e.g., fee simple or life estate. Estate for years, an interest in lands by virtue of a contract for the possession of them for a definite and limited period of time. May be for a year or less. A lease may be said to be an estate for years. Estate for life. A possessory, freehold estate in land held by a person only for the duration of his or her life or the life or lives of another. Estate at will. The occupation of lands and tenements by a tenant for an indefinite period, terminable by one or both parties. Estate at sufferance. An estate arising when the tenant wrongfully holds over after the expiration of the term. The landlord has the choice of evicting the tenant as a trespasser or accepting such tenant for a similar term and under the conditions of the tenant's previous holding. Also called a tenancy at sufferance. Estate from period to period. An interest in land where there is no definite termination date but the rental period is fixed at a certain sum per week, month, or year. Also called a periodic tenancy. Chattel real. An estate related to real estate, such as a lease on real property. Percentage lease. Lease on the property, the rental for which is determined by amount of business done by the lessee. Usually a percentage of gross receipts from the business with provision for a minimum rental. Net lease. A lease requiring a lessee to pay charges against the property such as taxes, insurance and maintenance costs in addition to rental payments. Sale-leaseback buyback. A sale and leaseback transaction in which the leaseholder has the option to buy back the original property after a specified period of time. Tenant. The party who has legal possession and use of real property belonging to another. Abandonment. The failure to occupy and use property that may result in a loss of rights. Sublease. A lease given by a lessee. Carryback loan. The extension of credit from the seller to the buyer to finance the purchase of the property, accepting a deed of trust or mortgage instead of cash. Sometimes called a purchase money loan. Chain of title. A history of conveyances and encumbrances affecting the title from the time the original patent was granted, or as far back as records are available, used to determine how title came to be vested in current owner. Chattels, goods or every species of property movable or immovable which are not real property. Personal property. Chattel real, an estate related to real estate, such as a lease on real property. Chattel mortgage, a claim on personal property, instead of real property, used to secure or guarantee a promissory note. Grantor, a person who transfers his or her interest in property to another by grant. Grantee, a person to whom a grant is made. Mortgager, one who gives a mortgage on his or her property to secure a loan or assure performance of an obligation, a borrower. Mortgagee, one to whom a mortgager gives a mortgage to secure a loan or performance of an obligation, a lender or creditor. See definition of secured party. Habendum clause, the to have and to hold clause which may be found in a deed. Incorporeal rights, non-possessory rights in real estate, arising out of ownership, such as rents. Lien, a form of encumbrance which usually makes specific property security for the payment of a debt or discharge of an obligation. Example: judgments, taxes, mortgages, deeds of trust, etc. Life estate, an estate or interest in real property, which is held for the duration of the life of some certain person. It may be limited by the life of the person holding it or by the life of some other person. Percentage lease. Lease on the property, the rental for which is determined by amount of business done by the lessee. Usually a percentage of gross receipts from the business with provision for a minimum rental. Personal property, any property which is not real property. Plottage, a term used in appraising to designate the increased value of two or more contiguous lots when they are joined under single ownership and available for use as a larger single lot. Also called assemblage. Wainscoting, wood lining of an interior wall. Lower section of a wall when finished differently from the upper part. Warranty deed, A deed used to convey real property which contains warranties of title and quiet possession, and the grantor thus agrees to defend the premises against the lawful claims of third persons. It is commonly used in many states, but in others the grant deed has supplanted it due to the modern practice of securing title insurance policies which have reduced the importance of express and implied warranty in deeds. Void. To have no force or effect, that which is unenforceable. Voidable. That which is capable of being adjudged void, but is not void unless action is taken to make it so. Vendor. A seller. Vendee. A purchaser, buyer. Underwriting. Insuring something against loss, guaranteeing financially. Truster. One who borrows money from a trust deed lender, then deeds the real property securing the loan to a trustee to be held as security until truster has performed the obligation to the lender under terms of a deed of trust. Trustee. One who holds property in trust for another to secure the performance of an obligation. Third party under a deed of trust. Title theory. Mortgage arrangement whereby title to mortgaged real property vests in the lender. Some states give greater protection to mortgage lenders and assume lenders have title interest. Distinguished from lien theory states. Testator. One who makes a will. Tax deed. The deed given to a purchaser at a public sale of land held for non-payment of taxes. It conveys to the purchaser only such title as the defaulting taxpayer had.